The uncontrollable bull was to be sacrificed. Until a quiet boy stepped forward. The decision had already been made at Red Willow Farm in rural Nebraska. The bull Thunder, once the most docile and valuable animal on the property, had become a threat after the accident that happened 3 weeks prior. The veterinarians couldn't explain the sudden change in behavior, and Arthur Harrison, the owner, could no longer risk the safety of his workers. It was then that Caleb James, the 12-year-old son of the farm's caretaker, took an action that no one expected from such a quiet and reserved boy. The boy had always been different from others his age. While the children in the area played and made noise, Caleb preferred to observe the animals, paying attention to details that went unnoticed by the adults. His mother, Martha, always said he had a special gift, but his father, Samuel, thought the boy was just very shy and needed to come out of his shell more. That Tuesday morning, Caleb woke up early, as he always did, to help his father with the farm chores. The sun hadn't fully risen yet when he heard the tense voices coming from the boss's office. Hidden behind the door, he managed to hear the entire conversation between Arthur Harrison and the veterinarian from town. "There's no other way, Doctor. Yesterday he almost knocked down the whole corral when Hank tried to put out the feed. If this continues, he's going to seriously hurt someone. I understand your concern, Mr. Arthur, but this change is just too strange. Thunder was always a gentle animal. I've never seen anything like it in all my years of practice." Caleb knew they were talking about the bull he had always admired from afar. Thunder was an imposing animal, weighing over 800 kilograms, with dark brown fur and horns that commanded respect. But contrary to what everyone now thought, Caleb was certain the animal wasn't bad. There was something different about him, something the adults couldn't see. The conversation continued for a few more minutes until Caleb heard the final decision. Arthur Harrison had scheduled the bull sacrifice for that Friday. Only 3 days. The boy's heart raced. He couldn't accept that such a magnificent animal would meet such a sad end just because no one understood what was happening to him. During breakfast, Caleb could barely eat. His older sister, Chloe, who was 17, noticed something was wrong, but the boy said nothing. Samuel also noticed his son's even greater silence, but assumed it was just another one of his introspective moments. "Caleb, aren't you going to eat the corn grits your mother made?" asked Martha, worried. "I'm not hungry, Mum." "Are you feeling all right, son?" Caleb just shook his head, got up from the table, and left the house. He needed to see the bull up close, even if it was risky. He had a strange feeling that he could understand the animal in a way no one else could. The isolation pen where Thunder was kept was in the most remote part of the property. Caleb walked slowly, observing everything around him. Red Willow Farm was large, with over 200 hectares of pasture and an old main house built by Arthur Harrison's grandfather in the 50s. The boy's family lived in a smaller but comfortable house near the main corral. When he got close to the isolation pen, Caleb could see Thunder for the first time since the accident. The bull was restless, pacing back and forth, constantly snorting. But there was something in his eyes that wasn't anger. It was something that seemed much more like sadness or even pain. Caleb watched for almost an hour, hidden behind a large tree about 20 meters away. He noticed the bull was limping slightly on its right hind leg, a detail that apparently no one else had noticed. He also observed that the animal became more agitated whenever it heard human voices approaching, but would calm down a bit when left alone. "What are you doing here, boy?" The voice of Hank Miller, one of the oldest ranch hands at the farm, startled Caleb. The man in his early 50s approached with a worried look. "Nothing, Mr. Hank, I was just looking." "This is no place for a child. That bull is dangerous. If your father finds out you were here, he'll be angry." Caleb lowered his head and agreed to move away, but he couldn't get what he had observed out of his mind. For the rest of the day, he kept thinking about how Thunder behaved. Something was wrong, but it wasn't meanness. It was something else. That evening during dinner, the conversation at the house revolved around the topic everyone was talking about on the farm. "It's a real shame what's going to happen to Thunder," said Chloe. "I remember him when he was younger. He was so gentle he even let us pet him." "That's right," Martha agreed, "but after Otis left, it seems the animal changed completely." Caleb looked up, interested. Otis was the bull's former handler, an elderly man who had worked on the farm for over 20 years and had retired about a month ago. "What do you mean he changed after Mr. Otis left?" asked Caleb, breaking his usual silence. Samuel looked at his son, surprised. He rarely asked questions or joined in family conversations. "Well, Mr. Otis always took care of Thunder since he was little. He had a special way with that bull. After he retired, the animal started getting more rebellious, and after the accident, it became impossible to handle." Caleb processed this information for the rest of the evening. Perhaps the bull's change in behavior had to do with the absence of its former handler. Animals could miss important people, just like people did. He had read about that in some books from the school library. The next morning, Wednesday, Caleb woke up even earlier than usual. He decided he needed to find a way to approach the bull without anyone noticing. If his theory was right, maybe he could help somehow. While helping his father organize the tools in the shed, Caleb asked casually, "Dad, where does Mr. Otis live now?" "In town with his daughter. Why do you ask?" "Just curious." Samuel stopped what he was doing and looked at his son carefully. "Caleb, you've been acting very strange since yesterday. Did something happen?" The boy hesitated for a moment. He really wanted to say what he was thinking, but he knew his father wouldn't let him get into a dangerous situation. "It's nothing, Dad. It's just that I think what's going to happen to Thunder is sad." "I think so too, son, but sometimes life forces us to make hard decisions. Mr. Arthur can't risk someone getting hurt because of that bull." That afternoon, while everyone was busy with other tasks, Caleb decided to put his plan into action. He waited until there was no one near the isolation pen and approached slowly, always keeping a safe distance. Thunder was lying in the shade, breathing heavily. Caleb noticed the animal seemed tired, as if it hadn't slept well. He watched for a few minutes until the bull noticed his presence and quickly stood up, assuming a defensive posture. But something interesting happened. Contrary to what he expected, Thunder didn't charge or start snorting aggressively. Instead, he stood still, just watching the boy with an attentive gaze. Caleb felt his heart race, but a strange feeling of calm also came over him. Very slowly he sat on the ground, still keeping a respectful distance from the pen. He stayed there, making no sudden movements, just looking at the animal. The minutes passed and Thunder gradually relaxed. He lay back down, but continued watching the boy. Caleb noticed there was something different in the way the bull looked at him. It wasn't with fear or aggression. It was almost as if it recognized something familiar in him. "Caleb James, what are you doing there?" Benedito's loud voice startled both the boy and the bull. Thunder quickly stood up and began pacing back and forth, clearly agitated by the presence of more people. "Dad, I was just—" "No excuses. Come here right now." Caleb got up and ran to his father, who was clearly nervous and worried. "How many times have I told you that pen is off limits? That bull is dangerous." "But Dad, he didn't do anything. He was just looking at me." "And you think that matters? If he decided to attack, you wouldn't even have time to run. Promise me you won't go near there again." Caleb looked down and murmured an agreement, but inside he knew he couldn't stay away. He had discovered something important that afternoon. Thunder wasn't aggressive with him. On the contrary, he even seemed to calm him down somehow. That night, Caleb could barely sleep. He kept thinking about how he could help the bull without directly disobeying his father. He needed to understand better what was happening, but he had little time. Only 2 days before the sacrifice. On Thursday morning, Caleb made a decision that would change everything. While the family was still asleep, he left the house very early and went straight to the pen where Thunder was. This time he brought with him a piece of sweet sorghum he had taken from the kitchen. The bull was awake, walking slowly around the pen. When he saw Caleb approaching, he stopped and watched. The boy sat in the same spot as the day before and placed the sorghum on the ground, pushing it slowly toward the animal. Thunder approached carefully, sniffed the sorghum, and began to eat. Caleb noticed that the bull really was limping on his right hind leg, and that it seemed to bother him a lot. Perhaps the aggression was actually a reaction to the pain he was feeling. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. As he watched Thunder eat the sorghum, Caleb began to notice other details. The water trough was almost empty, and the feed seemed untouched for days. The animal was clearly stressed and possibly dehydrated. No one had noticed, because everyone was afraid to get close. "I need to tell someone," Caleb murmured to himself. But he knew if he told about his observations, he'd have to admit he had disobeyed his father and approached the bull. And worse, no one would believe him. He was just a 12-year-old boy against the opinion of experienced adults. Caleb stayed at the pen for almost an hour, always keeping a safe distance but watching Thunder's every move. The bull seemed calmer in his presence, even lying down again and relaxing a little. As he was preparing to leave, Caleb heard footsteps approaching. He quickly hid behind the same tree as before and saw Hank Miller arriving with a bucket of feed. The ranch hand opened the gate of the pen very carefully, keeping an eye on the bull. Thunder immediately stood up and assumed an aggressive posture, snorting loudly and stamping his hoof on the ground. "Easy there, Thunder. It's just your food," said Hank, trying to keep his voice calm. But the bull did not calm down. On the contrary, he began walking toward the ranch hand, clearly agitated. Hank quickly set the bucket down and left the corral, closing the gate in a hurry. "That animal is getting worse every day," grumbled the ranch hand, wiping the sweat from his brow. Caleb observed the whole scene and confirmed his theory. Thunder wasn't aggressive by nature. He was reacting defensively to the presence of people he didn't know well or didn't trust. With Caleb, who approached calmly and without making sudden movements, the behavior was completely different. For the rest of the morning, Caleb tried to think of how he could use this discovery to save the bull. He needed someone who trusted him and had enough influence to change Arthur Harrison's decision. But who could that person be? The answer came during lunch, when Chloe mentioned she had seen Dr. Sterling, the veterinarian, arriving at the farm again. "He must be coming to make the preparations for tomorrow," said Martha, with a sad tone in her voice. Caleb quickly got up from the table. "Can I be excused, Mum?" "Where to?" "Just for a walk." Martha looked at her son with suspicion, but ended up agreeing. Caleb ran toward the main house, where he hoped to find the veterinarian still talking with Arthur Harrison. He arrived just as Dr. Sterling was leaving the office. He was a man of about 40 with graying hair and a calm way of speaking. Caleb had known him since he was little, as the vet had taken care of all the farm's animals for many years. "Dr. Sterling," called Caleb, still breathless from the run. "Hi, Caleb. How are you, son?" "Dr. Sterling, could you listen to me for a minute? It's about Thunder." The veterinarian stopped and looked at the boy attentively. He had known Caleb since he was very small and knew he wasn't one to speak idly. "Of course, Caleb. What do you want to tell me?" "I think I know why Thunder is aggressive. It's not malice, Doctor. He has pain in his right hind leg, and he's also thirsty and not eating properly." Dr. Sterling was surprised by the precision of the boy's observation. "How do you know that, Caleb?" The boy hesitated for a moment, but decided to tell the truth. "I approached his corral, Doctor. I know I shouldn't have, but I needed to see, and he's not aggressive with me. He stays calm when I'm around." "Caleb, that's very dangerous. You can't approach an animal that size when he's agitated." "But, Doctor, I'm sure of what I'm saying. Could you just take a look at his leg? Before what's going to happen tomorrow happens?" Dr. Sterling saw the sincerity and concern in the boy's eyes. He had known Caleb for years and knew he had a special sensitivity with animals. Perhaps it was worth investigating a little more. "All right, Caleb. I'll talk to Mr. Arthur about the possibility of examining Thunder one more time, but you promise me you won't approach the corral alone anymore?" Caleb agreed, though he knew it would be hard to keep that promise if it meant the difference between life and death for the bull. Dr. Sterling went back inside the main house, and Caleb waited outside, anxious to know the result of the conversation. After about 15 minutes, the vet came out accompanied by Arthur Harrison, who didn't seem very convinced. "Doctor, with all due respect, but we've examined this animal several times. We haven't found anything physically wrong." "I know, Mr. Arthur, but the boy made very specific observations. It's worth taking one last look before making a final decision." Arthur Harrison looked at Caleb with an expression between curiosity and skepticism. "Caleb, "Does your father know you've been messing with the bull?" "No, sir. He forbade me from going near." "And he was right to. But since you say you observed the animal, tell me exactly what you saw." Caleb took a deep breath and began to describe in detail everything he had noticed. The way Thunder was limping, how he became more agitated in the presence of strangers, how the water trough was always empty, and especially how the bull behaved differently when he was alone with him. Arthur Harrison and Dr. Sterling exchanged meaningful glances during the boy's account. "All right," said the farmer finally. "Doctor, examine the animal one more time. But if you don't find anything conclusive, the decision stands." Caleb felt an immense relief. At least he had gotten a new chance for Thunder. Now he needed to hope that the veterinarian would find evidence to prove his observations. The three walked together to the isolation pen. Thunder was lying in the shade but stood up quickly when he saw the people approaching. He immediately assumed a defensive posture, snorting and pawing at the ground. "See?" said Arthur Harrison. "He's impossible to handle." But Dr. Sterling noticed something interesting. The bull was looking mainly at him and at Arthur, but kept one eye on Caleb, who was standing a bit apart, and when he looked at the boy, his expression seemed less tense. "Caleb, come a little closer slowly," requested the veterinarian. "Doctor, that's not prudent," protested Arthur. "Just a little closer. I want to see the animal's reaction." Caleb took a few steps closer, always keeping his movements slow and gentle. Immediately, Thunder's agitation lessened. He remained alert but was no longer aggressive. "Interesting," murmured Dr. Sterling. "Caleb, sit on the ground right where you are." The boy obeyed, and the bull gradually relaxed even more, eventually lying down again. "How can something like this be?" asked Arthur, impressed. "I can't fully explain it, but some animals develop special bonds with certain people. It could be the way they move, their scent, the energy the person gives off. The important thing now is for me to be able to examine the animal." Dr. Sterling went to get his equipment from the car, and when he returned, he asked Caleb to stay nearby while he tried to approach Thunder. With the boy present, the bull remained calm enough for the veterinarian to perform a more detailed assessment. And it was then that Dr. Sterling discovered something that had gone unnoticed in previous exams. "There's a wood splinter here in the right hind hoof," announced the veterinarian, after carefully examining the bull's hoof. "It's deeply embedded. It must have been causing pain for weeks." Arthur Harrison came closer to get a better look. How was this missed before? Because the animal wouldn't let anyone get close enough for a thorough examination, and this splinter is in a position that's only visible when he lifts his hoof in a specific way. Caleb felt a mix of relief and pride. His observations were correct. Thunder was aggressive because he was in pain, not because he had become a dangerous animal. "Can you take the splinter out?" asked the boy. "I can try, but it will be tricky. I need him to stay very calm because I'll need a few minutes to remove it without causing more damage." "I can help," offered Caleb. "He stays calm when I'm around." Arthur Harrison hesitated. Putting a child at risk, even to save the bull, didn't seem like the wisest decision. "Caleb, that's very dangerous. If the bull gets startled in the middle of the procedure—" "Mr. Arthur," intervened Dr. Sterling, "I've seen many strange things in my profession. Animals that only trust one specific person, that react differently to certain presences. Caleb clearly has a special connection with this bull. If we maintain all safety precautions, I think it's worth a try." After much debate, they decided to make the attempt. Caleb positioned himself at a distance that allowed Thunder to see him and feel calm, but also provided safety in case something went wrong. The procedure was tense. Dr. Sterling worked very carefully, slowly removing the wood splinter that was causing the animal pain. Thunder remained surprisingly calm throughout the process, occasionally looking at Caleb as if seeking reassurance. When the splinter was finally removed, the relief was immediate. Thunder tested his hoof, put weight on it, and for the first time in weeks showed no signs of pain. "Unbelievable," said Arthur Harrison, shaking his head. "A 12-year-old boy figured out what all of us missed." Dr. Sterling applied a local antibiotic and cleaned the wound well. It will take a few days to heal completely, but he should already feel significant improvement. The aggression will likely decrease a lot now that the pain is gone. Caleb was beaming. He had managed to save Thunder, at least for now, but he knew he still had to prove that the bull could return to being the gentle animal he always was. In the following days, the improvement in Thunder's behavior was remarkable. Although he remained cautious with strangers, he no longer displayed the extreme aggression of recent times. And with Caleb, he continued to be particularly calm and trusting. The news of what had happened spread quickly across the farm. Caleb, who had always been known as the quiet, reserved boy, suddenly became the center of attention. Many of the workers came to talk to him, curious to understand how he had managed to notice something all the adults had missed. "He's always been observant," commented Martha with pride. "Since he was little, he'd spend hours watching the animals, seeing things we didn't even notice." Samuel, who had initially been worried and a bit angry about his son's adventures, now felt proud of the courage and sensitivity Caleb had shown. "Maybe we should pay more attention to what he has to say," the father admitted during a conversation with his wife. "That boy has a special gift." But the real transformation happened with Caleb himself. For the first time in his life, he had found his voice. He discovered that his observations had value, that his sensitivity with animals was a real talent that could make a difference. A week after the incident, Arthur Harrison called Caleb for a private conversation in his office. "Son, I want to thank you for what you did. Thunder was marked for sacrifice and you saved his life." "Thank you, Mr. Arthur. I knew he wasn't bad. And you were right. Dr. Sterling explained to me that injured animals can indeed become aggressive as a form of defense. Who would have thought a child would figure that out before all of us?" Caleb smiled timidly. "Mr. Arthur, can I ask you something?" "Of course. What's going to happen to Thunder now?" Arthur Harrison leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "Well, he still needs some special care until his hoof heals completely, and after that, we'll see how he behaves with the rest of the team. He'll be fine, I'm sure." "Caleb, can I make you a proposal?" The boy looked on curiously. "How about you help me take care of Thunder during this recovery period? Of course, always under the supervision of your father and Dr. Sterling, but it seems you have a special way with him." Caleb felt his heart race with joy. "Really, Mr. Arthur, I can." "Yes, you can." "Yes, you... but with a few conditions. First, your parents have to agree. Second, you can never be alone with the bull. There always has to be an adult nearby. And third, if at any point Dr. Sterling thinks it's not safe, you stop immediately." "Agreed." "Agreed. Thank you very much, Mr. Arthur." That night, during dinner, Caleb told the family about Arthur Harrison's proposal. The reaction was mixed. Martha was proud but worried. "My son, it's an honor that Mr. Arthur trusts you like that, but promise me you'll be careful." Chloe was impressed by her brother's change. Who would have thought Caleb would become the hero of the farm? She joked. Samuel was the most cautious. "Son, it's a great responsibility. Thunder may be better, but he's still a bull of nearly 1,000 kilos. You must always remember that." "I know, Dad. I'll be very careful, I promise." "And your studies? You can't put school aside because of this." "I won't. I can take care of Thunder before and after class." After much discussion, the family agreed to the proposal, provided all safety conditions were respected. The next day, Caleb began his new routine. Every morning, before going to school, he stopped by the corral to check on Thunder. In the afternoon, when he returned from classes, he helped change the water, organize the feed, and spent some time just observing the animal recover. The bull clearly waited for these visits. When he saw Caleb approaching, he always showed signs of recognition and contentment. Sometimes he even approached the fence, as if wanting a kind of affection. Dr. Sterling closely monitored the case's progress and was impressed by the connection between the boy and the animal. "It's a rare thing to see," he commented to Arthur Harrison during one of his visits. "I've handled similar cases, but never with this intensity. It's as if they understand each other in a way that goes beyond the normal." "The boy has a future in this area," agreed the farmer. "I'm even thinking of talking to his father about the possibility of Caleb taking a technical course in veterinary science or animal husbandry when he's older." 2 weeks after the special care began, Thunder was completely physically recovered. His leg no longer hurt, he was eating well, and his general behavior had improved drastically. Then came the moment for the final test, reintroducing the bull into the farm's normal management. with other workers caring for him. Caleb was nervous on the day of the test. What if Thunder became aggressive again? What if the special connection between them wasn't enough to keep the animal calm in the presence of other people? Hank Miller, the ranch hand who had been one of the first victims of Thunder's aggression, was chosen to perform the test. He was also nervous, but trusted the work Caleb had done with the animal. "If anything goes wrong, I'll run for it," joked Hank, trying to disguise the tension. Caleb positioned himself where Thunder could see him, but without interfering with Hank's work. The plan was simple. The ranch hand would enter the corral, change the water, and put out fresh feed, exactly as he did before the problem started. When Hank opened the corral gate, Thunder immediately became alert. But he did not assume the aggressive posture of earlier times. He stood still, watching, but without showing hostility. Hank entered slowly, keeping an eye on the bull. He placed the feed bucket on the ground and began filling the water trough. Thunder approached, sniffed the feed, and began eating normally. "I don't believe it," murmured Hank, relieved. "He's completely different." The test was a complete success. Thunder showed no signs of aggression, behaving exactly as he had before the incident that nearly cost him his life. Dr. Sterling, who was observing everything, gave a final assessment. "I can safely state that this bull no longer poses any risk. The aggression was indeed a reaction to the pain he was feeling. With the problem resolved, he has returned to normal behavior." Arthur Harrison approached Caleb, who was beaming with success. "Caleb, you didn't just save Thunder's life. You taught us an important lesson about observing our animals better and not jumping to conclusions. Thank you, Mr. Arthur. I'm just happy that Thunder is okay. And now, will you keep helping take care of him?" Caleb smiled. "If you'll let me, I'd really like to." "Of course I will. In fact, I have a better proposal. How about you help me observe all the animals on the farm? It seems you have a natural talent for noticing things we adults miss." The proposal excited Caleb more than anything he could have imagined. He had finally found his passion, his purpose. He knew he wanted to work with animals for the rest of his life. In the months that followed, Caleb became a kind of informal consultant for Red Willow Farm. Whenever an animal showed strange behavior or health problems, Arthur Harrison would ask the boy's opinion before calling the veterinarian. And Caleb was rarely wrong. His power of observation and his special sensitivity with animals proved to be a genuine gift. He could perceive signs of pain, discomfort, or stress that went unnoticed by others. Thunder remained a special case. The bull clearly maintained a special affection for Caleb, always showing contentment when he saw him approach, and Caleb returned that affection, spending extra time caring specifically for him. "It's like you two are old friends," Chloe commented one day, watching the interaction between her brother and the bull. "It's a strange feeling," Caleb admitted. "It's like I can understand what he's feeling, and he can understand what I'm thinking." The story of Caleb and Thunder became legend in the region. Other farmers began to seek out the boy when they had problems with their animals, and Caleb, who before could barely speak to strangers, discovered he had much to contribute. Martha was bursting with pride. "My son has found his calling," she said to anyone who would listen. "I always knew he was special, but I never imagined it would be like this." Samuel, initially skeptical, now completely encouraged his son's interest. "If this is what you want to do with your life, Caleb, you have all my support. But don't forget to study hard, because even working with animals, you'll need a lot of knowledge." Caleb took his father's advice seriously. He began to read everything he could find about veterinary medicine, animal science, and animal behavior. The school library soon proved too small for his thirst for knowledge. Dr. Sterling, impressed with the boy's interest and talent, began taking him on some consultations in the region. Caleb observed everything, asked intelligent questions, and always offered valuable observations about the animal's behavior. "That boy has a future," Dr. Sterling commented to Arthur Harrison. "With the natural sensitivity he has, plus good technical training, he could become an excellent professional." "I'm thinking of funding his studies when it's time for college," the farmer revealed. "It's the least I can do for someone who saved my most valuable animal, and also taught me so much about observation and patience. Caleb learned of this conversation weeks later, through Chloe, who had overheard their parents talking. He was moved by Arthur Harrison's generosity, but also by the responsibility it represented. "I'll study hard to deserve this opportunity," he promised himself. And he did. Caleb became one of the best students in school, not only in subjects related to animals and science, but in all disciplines. He knew he needed a well-rounded education to achieve his dreams. Thunder, meanwhile, became once again one of the gentlest and most valuable bulls on Red Willow Farm. Arthur Harrison received very advantageous purchase offers, but always refused. "That bull is not for sale," he would say. "He represents something very special for our farm." 1 year after the incident that nearly cost Thunder his life, Caleb had completely transformed. From a shy and reserved boy, he had become a confident and communicative young man, especially when the subject was animals. His reputation in the region grew so much that he began receiving invitations to give talks at other farms, sharing his experience and teaching animal observation techniques he had developed. "Who would have thought that quiet boy would become a speaker?" commented Martha, proud. "He hasn't changed," corrected Chloe. "He just found his voice." And that was exactly what had happened. Caleb always had a lot to say. He just needed to find the right subject and the necessary courage. At school, he became a sort of consulting expert whenever questions about animals arose in science classes. The teachers quickly realized the boy had knowledge far beyond what was expected for his age. "Caleb has an intuitive understanding of animal behavior that I've never seen in someone so young," the biology teacher commented to the other faculty. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now continuing. 2 years had passed since the day Caleb saved Thunder. The boy, now 14, had grown not only in age but especially in confidence and knowledge. His passion for animals had led him to develop skills that impressed even experienced veterinarians. Dr. Sterling had become a sort of mentor to Caleb, regularly taking him along to observe consultations and procedures. The boy absorbed knowledge like a sponge, always asking pertinent questions and offering valuable observations. "I've never seen anyone learn so fast," the veterinarian commented to Samuel. "Caleb has a natural instinct that can't be taught. It's something you're born with." Thunder remained a special case in Caleb's life. The bull, now fully integrated into the normal farm management, still maintained a special affection for the young man who had saved his life. Whenever Caleb approached, the animal showed clear signs of recognition and contentment. This special connection did not go unnoticed by farm visitors. Arthur Harrison regularly received people interested in hearing the story of the boy and the bull that had become famous in the region. "It's something you have to see to believe," the farmer would tell visitors. "The connection between them goes beyond any scientific explanation, I know." Caleb had learned to handle this extra attention, using it as an opportunity to educate people about animal behavior and the importance of careful observation. "Often when an animal is aggressive or acting strange, it's trying to tell us something," Caleb would explain to visitors. "We just need to learn to listen." This simple yet profound philosophy began to influence not only Red Willow Farm, but other properties in the region. Farmers began paying more attention to the signs their animals showed, avoiding problems that were once resolved in drastic ways. At school, Caleb became the leader of an animal welfare awareness project. Together with other students, he organized talks and educational events that attracted attention from the entire school community. "I am very proud of Caleb," said the school principal during a meeting with parents. "He has transformed into a true leader, using his passion to educate and inspire other students." Martha and Samuel were beaming with their son's evolution. The boy, who previously barely spoke at home, was now constantly talking about his discoveries, his projects, and his plans for the future. "Sometimes I think it's not the same boy," Martha would comment. "But then I remember he was always like this on the inside. He just needed an opportunity to show it." Chloe, who had finished high school and was working in the city, was always impressed by her brother's changes whenever she came home. "Caleb, you've become a completely different person," she said during a visit. "No, Chloe, I've always been this way. I just didn't know how to show it before." It was a wise answer for someone only 14 years old, but Caleb had matured far beyond his years. The responsibilities he took on at the farm, the knowledge he acquired, and especially the confidence he developed, had transformed him into a remarkably mature young man. Dr. Sterling began taking Caleb to veterinary conferences in the region, where the boy was introduced as an example of natural talent for animal observation. These experiences broadened Caleb's horizons even further and connected him with professionals from all over the area. "That boy is going to go far," other veterinarians would remark after meeting Caleb. "He has a gift we rarely see, even in experienced professionals." Arthur Harrison, keeping his promise, began making concrete plans to fund Caleb's higher education. He consulted universities, researched courses, and even contacted professors to ensure the boy would have the best opportunities when the time came. "Caleb, have you thought about what kind of specialization you want to pursue?" the farmer asked during one of his regular conversations with the young man. "I think I want to study veterinary medicine, but with a focus on animal behavior," Caleb replied. "There's so much we still don't know about how animals think and feel." "It's a promising field. Dr. Sterling told me interest in animal behavior specialists is growing a lot." Caleb smiled. "I want to be able to help more animals like I helped Thunder, and I want to teach other people to notice the signals animals give us." This clear vision of the future impressed everyone around Caleb. At only 14, he had already defined not just what he wanted to do, but how he wanted to contribute to the world. At the farm, Caleb had become indispensable. Arthur Harrison now consulted him on any important decision related to the animals. His opinion had become as respected as that of far more experienced professionals. One day, a case arrived at the farm that would test Caleb's skills once again. A farmer from the neighboring area brought a mare that was displaying aggressive behavior similar to what Thunder had shown. "Dr. Sterling told me you have a specialist for difficult cases," the man said, looking around for a professional. "Our specialist is that boy over there," replied Arthur Harrison, pointing to Caleb, who was observing the mare from a distance. The farmer looked visibly skeptical. "A boy? But he must be what, 12, 13 years old?" 14, corrected Arthur. "And I guarantee he knows more about animal behavior than many people who've worked in the field for decades." Caleb approached calmly, always maintaining a respectful distance from the mare. He immediately noticed several signs that caught his attention: the way she distributed her weight on her hooves, the tension in the muscles of her neck, and especially how she reacted to quick movements. "Can I ask a few questions about the mare?" Caleb asked the farmer, who still seemed surprised by the specialist's age. "Of course. When did the aggressive behavior start?" "About 3 weeks ago." "Did anything change in her routine during that time? Where she stays, who cares for her, type of feed?" The farmer thought for a moment. "Well, we moved her to a different pasture about a month ago, and we also changed handlers because the old one retired." Caleb exchanged a significant look with Dr. Sterling and Arthur Harrison. The situation was strangely similar to Thunder's. "May I observe her for a few minutes?" asked Caleb. "Of course, but be careful, she's truly dangerous." Caleb positioned himself in a spot where he could see the mare clearly, but maintained a safe distance. He stood there, motionless, just observing. The mare, initially agitated by the presence of strangers, gradually began to calm down. After 15 minutes of silent observation, Caleb made his assessment. "She's in pain in her back," he announced, "probably something related to the saddle or how she's being ridden, and she's also stressed by the changes in her environment and routine." The farmer was dumbfounded. "How can you know that just by looking?" "By the way she moves, how she distributes her weight, and especially by the tension she holds in her muscles. They are signs that indicate physical discomfort." Dr. Sterling approached to do a more detailed examination and discovered exactly what Caleb had identified: a problem with the saddle that was causing excessive pressure on the mare's back. "Unbelievable," murmured the farmer. "How did a boy manage to see in a quick glance what I didn't notice in weeks?" "Experience and observation," replied Caleb simply, "and mostly patience to really look instead of just seeing." The case of the mare further increased Caleb's reputation in the region. Soon, farmers from several neighboring towns began to seek him out when they had problems with their animals. Caleb attended to everyone with the same dedication and care, always accompanied by Dr. Sterling or another responsible adult. He never charged anything for his advice, considering it a way to repay all the support he had received. "Caleb, you should start charging for your consultations," suggested Chloe during one of her visits. "You're providing a professional service." "I don't want to charge yet," replied Caleb. "First, I need to learn much more, and besides, I like to help." This humility and generosity of spirit impressed everyone who knew Caleb. Even with all the recognition and success he was having, he kept his feet on the ground and his focus on learning. Dr. Sterling grew increasingly impressed with the evolution of his young pupil. "Caleb, have you ever considered the possibility of starting college earlier?" he asked during one of their joint consultations. "How do you mean, Doctor?" "Well, with the knowledge you already have, and considering your age, perhaps you could take a special preparatory course and enter university at 16 or 17. Caleb became thoughtful. "Would that be possible?" "I'll look into it. I know of some special programs for gifted young people. It could be an opportunity to accelerate your training." The idea excited Caleb, but it also made him a little nervous. Entering university so young would be a huge challenge, especially considering his personality, which was still somewhat reserved in new situations. When he told his parents the news, the reaction was mixed. Martha was worried. "My son, don't you think it's too early? University is an adult environment." Samuel was more pragmatic. "If Caleb feels prepared, and if the teachers think he has the ability, why not try?" "But he's still a child," insisted Martha. "Mom," Caleb interjected, "I feel prepared, and it would be an opportunity to learn much, much more and much faster. And won't you miss spending time with people your own age?" Caleb thought about his mother's question. "Mom, I was never really one to spend much time with people my own age anyway. I've always felt more comfortable with adults or with animals." It was true. Even with all the transformation he had undergone, Caleb remained someone who preferred deep conversations and meaningful relationships over the superficial interactions typical of adolescence. After much family discussion, they decided Caleb would take the preparatory tests. If he could pass, it would confirm he was truly ready. If he couldn't, he would continue his normal studies until the appropriate age. The next months were of intense preparation. Caleb divided his time between caring for the farm animals, his regular school studies, and the additional preparation for the early university entrance exams. Dr. Sterling became his official tutor, helping mainly with the specific subjects of veterinary medicine and biology. Arthur Harrison hired a private tutor for math and physics, areas where Caleb needed reinforcement. "I'm investing in the future," the farmer would say, when someone commented on the expenses he was having with Caleb's education. "This boy is going to make a difference in the world, I'm sure of it." Thunder, throughout this period of intense preparation, continued to be a source of relaxation and inspiration for Caleb. In moments of high study stress, the young man would go to the pen where the bull stayed and spend a few minutes just observing the animal he had saved years ago. "It's like he reminds me why I'm doing all this," Caleb explained to Chloe during one of her visits. "And why are you doing it?" "To be able to help more animals like him, to better understand how they think and feel, to be a bridge between the world of animals and the world of people." This answer revealed the maturity and clarity of purpose Caleb had developed. At 15, he already had a clearer vision of life than many people develop over decades. Test day arrived. Caleb was nervous, but confident. He had prepared intensively and knew he had given his best. The entire family accompanied him to the university. It was the first time Caleb had left the region where he had grown up, and everything seemed huge and intimidating. "You'll do well," said Martha, trying to hide her own anxiety. "Remember what you did with Thunder," added Samuel. "You have the gift of observing and understanding things others can't. Use that." Caleb hugged his parents and went in to take the tests. It was 4 hours of exams, covering everything from general knowledge to specific concepts of veterinary medicine and animal behavior. When he came out, he was exhausted but optimistic. "How was it?" Martha asked anxiously. "I think it went well. The animal behavior questions were exactly the kind of thing I've been studying with Dr. Sterling. The results would come out in 2 weeks. They were the 2 longest weeks of Caleb's life. He tried to stay busy with his normal activities on the farm, but the anxiety was evident. Thunder seemed to sense the young man's nervousness. Whenever Caleb approached the pen, the bull was especially affectionate, as if trying to offer comfort to his savior. "Even Thunder is worried about you," joked Hank Miller, who had become a great admirer of Caleb after the bull episode. Finally, results day arrived. Dr. Sterling personally went to fetch the letter from the university and brought it to the farm. The whole family gathered in Arthur Harrison's office for the solemn opening of the letter. Caleb was so nervous he could barely hold the paper. "Dear candidate Caleb James Harrison," he began to read aloud, "it is with great pleasure that we inform you of your approval in the special selection process for early admission to the veterinary medicine program." Silence was followed by an explosion of joy. Martha began to cry, Samuel hugged his son tightly, Chloe shouted with joy, and Arthur Harrison smiled with paternal pride. "I knew you could do it," said Dr. Sterling, moved. "You deserve this opportunity." Caleb was in shock. He had really done it. At 15, he would enter the university to study exactly what he had always dreamed of. "When do classes start?" asked Chloe. Caleb kept reading the letter. "Next semester, in 2 months." Fulfillment mixed with anxiety. In 2 months, his life would change completely. He would leave the farm where he grew up, his family, the animals he cared for, and especially Thunder. "And now?" asked Martha, noticing the change in her son's expression. "Now I'm going to study hard to deserve this chance," replied Caleb, recomposing himself, "and I will work so that one day I can return and help even more animals in our region." Arthur Harrison approached Caleb. "Son, you saved my most valuable bull, and on top of that, taught me lessons I'll carry for the rest of my life. Paying for your studies is the least I can do. You can count on me for everything you need. Thank you, Mr. Arthur, for everything. Without you, none of this would be possible. Without you, Thunder wouldn't be alive. I think we're even." The 2 months that followed passed quickly. Caleb tried to enjoy every moment on the farm, aware that an important phase of his life was coming to an end. He spent extra hours with Thunder, as if he wanted to etch into his memory every detail of the special connection they shared. The bull seemed to sense that something was changing, showing more affectionate behavior than usual. "You're going to miss him," commented Chloe, watching the interaction between her brother and the bull. "I'm going to miss all of this," replied Caleb, looking around the farm, "but I know I need to leave so I can come back better prepared." Dr. Sterling helped Caleb prepare for university life, giving practical advice on how to deal with professors, older classmates, and the responsibility of being in college so young. "Always remember why you are there," said the veterinarian. "You have a special gift, but you need technical knowledge to use it the best way possible." The farewell was emotional for the whole family. Martha packed a suitcase full of homemade food, Samuel gave advice about responsibility and independence, and Chloe promised to visit whenever possible. Arthur Harrison insisted on taking Caleb to the university personally. "I want to meet the professors who will train my protégé," said the farmer. The trip to the university was a mix of expectation and nostalgia. Caleb watched the landscape change, knowing he was leaving behind the life he knew to embrace an uncertain but promising future. When they arrived on campus, Caleb was impressed by the size and modernity of the facilities. It was a world completely different from the farm where he had grown up. "Nervous?" asked Arthur Harrison. "A little, but also eager to start learning." "You'll do fine. You have a solid foundation, and most importantly, you know why you're here." The introduction to the professors was positive. They were all curious to meet the young prodigy who had passed the special selection process and were impressed by the maturity and practical knowledge Caleb demonstrated. "It's rare to see someone so young with such a clear passion for the field," commented the course coordinator. "We expect great things from you, Caleb." "I'll do my best not to disappoint you," replied the young man. Arthur Harrison returned to the farm the next day, leaving Caleb settled in the student dormitory. It was a difficult farewell, as the farmer had become a father figure to the boy. "Take good care of yourself, Caleb. And remember, you'll always have a home at Red Willow Farm. Thank you for everything, Mr. Arthur. I promise I'll make you proud. You already made me proud the day you saved Thunder." The first days at university were challenging. Caleb was clearly the youngest among the students and had to work hard to be taken seriously by his peers. But his dedication to his studies and his practical knowledge soon earned him respect. The professors were particularly impressed when Caleb began contributing in class with real experiences he had lived on the farm. "This case the professor is describing is very similar to a situation I experienced a few years ago," said Caleb during a class on aggressive animal behavior. From there he began to tell Thunder's story. The room fell completely silent as the young man recounted how he had identified the cause of the bull's aggression and managed to save him from being put down. "That is a perfect demonstration of the concepts we're studying," said the professor. "Caleb, would you mind presenting this case as a formal study for the class?" Caleb agreed, and his presentation was a success. The older classmates began to see him not as a child out of place, but as someone who truly belonged there. During his first year of college, Caleb kept in regular contact with his family and with Red Willow Farm. Every week, he would call for news about Thunder and the other animals. "How is Thunder?" was always his first question. "He's fine, but I think he misses you," Martha would always reply. On breaks, Caleb would return home and spend hours in the corral with the bull. The special connection between them remained intact, as if time and distance made no difference. "It's incredible," commented Dr. Sterling, observing the interaction between Caleb and Thunder. After so much time apart, they still understand each other perfectly. Caleb was growing and maturing even more at university, but Red Willow Farm remained his true home, and Thunder remained the symbol of his journey and personal transformation. During his second year of college, Caleb began to stand out even more. His grades were excellent, but it was mainly his ability to connect theory with practice that impressed teachers and classmates. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. One day, Caleb received a call that would change his perspective on life once again. It was Hank Miller, calling from Red Willow Farm with an urgency in his voice that immediately worried the young college student. "Caleb, you need to come home as fast as possible." "What happened, Mr. Hank? Is it Thunder?" "Yes, son. He's been acting very strange for about 3 days. He's not eating right, just stands in a corner of the pasture, and when we get near, he doesn't react like he usually does." Caleb felt his heart tighten. "Did you call Dr. Sterling?" "He's already been here twice. Did every possible test but found nothing wrong physically. Said it might be something emotional, and that maybe you could help." "I'm coming there today." Caleb cancelled all his classes for the week and took the first bus home. During the entire trip, he kept thinking about what could be happening to Thunder. The bull was already 8 years old, a still good age for an animal of his species, but Caleb knew that sudden behavioral changes always indicated some problem. When he arrived at the farm, he went straight to the pasture where Thunder was kept. What he saw worried him. The bull was truly listless, standing under a tree with a distant look in his eyes. It was completely different from the vibrant animal Caleb had always known. "Thunder," called Caleb, approaching slowly. The bull lifted his head and looked toward Caleb. For a moment, his eyes lit up with recognition, but then returned to their previous apathy. Caleb watched for a few minutes and noticed several worrying signs. The bull barely moved, breathed irregularly, and most importantly, showed no interest in food or water. "Exactly how long has he been like this?" Caleb asked Hank Miller. "It started last Monday. At first we thought it was just a bad day, but it got worse." "Did anything different happen at the farm last week?" Hank thought for a moment. "Well, actually, yes. Arthur Harrison had to travel to take care of some business in the capital, and he'll be gone for about 2 months. Caleb immediately understood the connection. "And does Thunder know that Mr. Arthur traveled?" "He must. That bull has always been too smart." Caleb grew thoughtful. Thunder had developed a strong bond not only with him, but also with Arthur Harrison over the years. The farmer's sudden absence could be causing an emotional reaction in the animal. "Mr. Hank, can animals get depressed when important people disappear from their lives?" "Caleb, after everything I've seen with you and that bull, I believe anything." Caleb decided to spend the night at the farm to observe Thunder more closely. He set up a small camp near the pasture and kept watch over the bull's behavior all night. What he observed confirmed his suspicions. Thunder was clearly in a state of mourning over Arthur Harrison's absence. He paced restlessly at night, always looking toward the main house, as if expecting to see the farmer appear. The next morning, Caleb called Dr. Sterling and shared his observations. "That makes total sense," agreed the veterinarian. "Animals develop strong emotional bonds with important people in their lives. A sudden absence can indeed cause a depressive reaction. What can we do to help?" "First, you can try to re-establish his normal routine. Spend more time nearby, talk to him, do the activities you always did together. Second, we can try to get in touch with Mr. Arthur to explain the situation." Caleb liked the idea. He immediately called Arthur Harrison and explained what was happening with Thunder. "That bull never ceases to amaze me," said the farmer, clearly moved by the information. "Of course I'll come back as soon as possible." "You don't need to cancel your business because of this, Mr. Arthur. Let me try to help first." "Caleb, that bull is part of the family. If he's suffering, there's no business in the world more important." Arthur Harrison managed to move up his commitments and returned to the farm 2 days later. Thunder's reaction was immediate and moving. As soon as he saw the farmer approaching, the bull ran across the pasture and went straight to meet him. "Hello, my old friend," said Arthur Harrison, petting the bull's head. "I missed you too." Thunder was clearly agitated with joy. He walked around Arthur, rested his head against him, and for the first time in a week showed interest in food. Caleb watched the whole scene with emotion. It was further confirmation that the emotional intelligence of animals went far beyond what most people imagined. "Mr. Arthur, you need to explain to Thunder when you're going to travel again. Animals understand more than we think." "You're right, Caleb. Next time I'll say a proper goodbye to him before I leave." The incident with Thunder became another important chapter in Caleb's education. He documented the entire case and presented it as a special project in college, focusing on the emotional bond between animals and humans. This is a perfect example of how modern veterinary medicine needs to consider the emotional and psychological aspects of animals, not just the physical ones, explained Caleb during his presentation. The presentation was very well received by the professors and colleagues, and Caleb was invited to publish the case in a scientific journal in the field. "You are becoming a reference in emotional animal behavior," said his advisor. "It's a growing area, and you have a lot to contribute." Caleb was proud of the recognition, but mostly satisfied to be contributing to a better understanding of animals. During his 3rd year of college, Caleb began receiving invitations to give lectures at other universities and veterinary events. His story with Thunder, combined with his academic knowledge, made him a highly sought-after speaker. "It's surreal," Caleb commented to Chloe during one of his visits to the farm. "5 years ago I could barely talk to strangers, and now I'm giving lectures to hundreds of people." "You found your voice by talking about your passion," replied his sister. "It's natural that you feel confident." Caleb continued to return regularly to the farm, and Thunder continued to be a source of inspiration and learning. The bull was now 9 years old, still healthy and active, but Caleb noticed he was more affectionate and dependent on human attention. "He's getting more sentimental with age," observed Caleb. "Just like people," laughed Hank Miller. "The older he gets, the needier he gets." During one of these visits, Caleb received a proposal that made him seriously think about his future plans. Dr. Sterling approached him with an ambitious idea. "Caleb, how about opening a veterinary clinic specialized in animal behavior here in the region?" "A specialized clinic?" "Exactly. You already have a solid reputation in the field. You're finishing college with excellent grades, and you know the needs of the local farmers well. You could be a pioneer in this type of care around here." The idea excited Caleb immediately. He had always planned to return to the region after graduating, but hadn't thought of something so specific and innovative. "It would be amazing, Dr. Sterling, but would I have enough experience?" "Caleb, you already have more practical experience than many veterinarians who graduated years ago. And besides, I could be your senior partner, helping with the administrative side and the more complex cases." The partnership proposal with Dr. Sterling was more than Caleb could have imagined. It would be the opportunity to unite his passion, his knowledge, and his life experience into a meaningful professional project. "I need to think and talk with my family," said Caleb, "but in principle, I would love to do it." That night, during dinner at the family home, Caleb shared Dr. Sterling's proposal. The reaction was one of general enthusiasm. "Son, it would be perfect," said Martha. "You could help animals from the whole region, and you'd still be close to us. And it would be a way to give back everything the community has done for you," added Samuel. Arthur Harrison, when he heard about the idea, immediately offered to help with the initial investment. "Caleb, you transformed my farm, taught me valuable lessons, and saved my dearest animal. Investing in your professional future would be a privilege." With so much support, Caleb decided to accept the proposal. He would spend his last year of college preparing to open the specialized clinic as soon as he graduated. During this preparation period, Caleb deepened his studies in animal behavior even further, took supplementary courses, and began developing his own methodologies based on his practical experiences. Thunder continued to be his main case study and inspiration. Caleb meticulously documented every aspect of the relationship they had developed over the years, creating a true manual on emotional bonds between humans and animals. "That bull is going to end up famous," Chloe joked, watching Caleb photograph and film Thunder for his studies. "He already is famous," Caleb replied. "It's just that now he's going to help other animals through what I've learned from him." Caleb's graduation was a special event for the entire community. Family, friends, teachers, and even farmers from the region attended to celebrate the achievement of the young man, who had become a local reference. Dr. Sterling made a point of being the class's honorary speaker, and in his speech, he told the story of Caleb and Thunder as an example of how genuine passion can transform lives. 6 years ago, a shy boy saved the life of a bull destined for slaughter, said Dr. Sterling before the moved audience. Today, that boy graduates as a veterinarian and is ready to save many other lives, using the sensitivity and knowledge he developed in that transformative experience. Caleb, now 19 years old, was unrecognizable compared to the quiet boy from before. Confident, articulate, and full of purpose, he represented a living example of how finding our passion can completely transform us. In his graduation speech, Caleb made a point of thanking everyone who had supported him, but saved a special thank you for last. "I want to thank a bull named Thunder, who taught me that sometimes we need to have the courage to approach what others consider dangerous or impossible. He taught me that observing with patience and love can reveal truths that escape the hasty eye. And most importantly, he taught me that saving a life can end up saving our own life as well." The audience was moved by Caleb's words, especially Arthur Harrison, who was visibly proud of the young man he had helped to shape. After graduation, Caleb dedicated himself fully to opening the specialized veterinary clinic. With the support of Dr. Sterling, Arthur Harrison, and even college classmates, he managed to set up a modern and complete facility. The clinic was built in a strategic location between Red Willow Farm and the town, allowing easy access for both urban and rural cases. Caleb made sure to include a special space for behavioral observation, inspired by his experiences with Thunder. On opening day, a crowd gathered to see the new clinic. Caleb was nervous but confident. He had spent months preparing for this moment. The clinic's first official patient was, symbolically, Thunder himself. Caleb gave the bull, now 10 years old, a complete checkup, documenting everything to officially mark the beginning of his professional activities. "It's only fair that it be this way," said Caleb, petting Thunder. "You were my first success story. It's only fair you're also my first official patient." The bull, as always, showed complete calm in Caleb's presence, allowing all procedures to be performed without any stress. "After so many years, they still have a special connection," Dr. Sterling commented to visitors who were witnessing the appointment. In the first few months of operation, Caleb's clinic quickly gained a reputation in the region. Cases considered difficult or impossible by other veterinarians came to him, and often Caleb was able to find solutions through his unique approach focused on animal behavior. One of the most notable cases was that of a dairy cow that had completely stopped producing milk without any apparent physical cause. Other veterinarians had recommended culling the animal, But the farmer decided to try a consultation with Caleb as a last resort. Caleb spent hours observing the cow and its environment. He discovered that it had recently lost its favorite calf and was in a state of mourning. Through behavioral techniques and a lot of patience, he managed to help the animal overcome the loss and return to producing milk normally. "How do you manage to notice these things?" asked the farmer, impressed. "I learned by observing a bull named Thunder," Caleb replied simply. Cases like this multiplied, and Caleb's reputation spread throughout the region. Soon, veterinarians from other towns began referring their most difficult cases to him. The clinic grew rapidly, and Caleb hired other professionals to help with the growing demand. But he personally kept his focus on the most complex behavioral cases, always applying the lessons he had learned from his first experience with Thunder. 3 years after opening the clinic, Caleb received an unexpected offer. A nationally renowned veterinary university invited him to be a professor for a new discipline, animal behavior and psychology. "Professor Caleb, how about that?" Chloe joked when she heard about the offer. "It's tempting," Caleb admitted. "It would be a way to teach other veterinarians about the importance of considering animals' emotional aspects. And would you accept? Perhaps as a visiting professor, giving a few lectures a month. I don't want to completely abandon the clinic and the region where I grew up." Caleb negotiated an arrangement that allowed him to keep the clinic running while giving monthly lectures at the university. It was the perfect combination of practice and teaching, allowing him to continue treating animals while training new professionals in the field. His lectures quickly became the most sought after in the program. Caleb always began by telling the story of Thunder, using it as a practical example of the theoretical concepts he taught. "The first lesson I want to teach you," Caleb would say to each new class, "is that sometimes the solution to a seemingly impossible problem can be found through patient observation and genuine empathy." The students were fascinated by the story of the shy boy who saved a bull destined for sacrifice and ended up discovering his life's calling in the process. During one of these lectures, a student asked a question Caleb had never deeply considered. "Professor, do you think you saved Thunder? Or was it he who saved you?" Caleb fell silent for a long moment, pondering the depth of the question. "You know, I always thought I had saved him. But now, looking back, I think it was a mutual salvation. He taught me who I really was inside. He gave me the courage to find my voice and my purpose. So perhaps the answer is, we saved each other." This reflection marked a new phase in Caleb's career. He began writing a book, telling his story and the lessons learned along the journey, from the quiet boy to becoming a reference in animal behavior. The book, titled "The Silent Connection: Life Lessons Learned from a Bull," became a publishing success, read not only by veterinarians, but by anyone interested in stories of overcoming adversity and discovering purpose. Caleb used some of the book's profits to create an animal behavior research institute, always keeping Thunder as the project's symbol and inspiration. Thunder, at 13 years old, was entering the final phase of his life. Caleb noticed signs of natural aging, but the bull continued to show vitality and, above all, the same special connection with his savior. "He's aging well," commented Dr. Sterling during a routine checkup. "Yes, but I notice he enjoys attention more and more. He stays closer to me when I come to visit him. Older animals often value companionship more. It's natural." Caleb was aware that eventually he would have to say goodbye to the bull that changed his life. It was a painful prospect, but he was determined to cherish every moment they still had together. On weekends, when he wasn't teaching or seeing patients at the clinic, Caleb spent hours in the pasture with Thunder. Sometimes he brought books and studied while the bull grazed nearby. Other times they simply stayed together in silence, enjoying each other's company. "You two look like a pair of old friends," joked Hank Miller, who at 60 still cared for the farm animals. "That's exactly what we are," replied Caleb, smiling. On one of these peaceful afternoons, Caleb had an idea he considered perfect to honor Thunder. He decided to create a documentary about their story, which could be used as educational material in schools and veterinary colleges. The documentary took months to produce, with Caleb interviewing all the people who were part of the story: his parents, Chloe, Dr. Sterling, Arthur Harrison, Hank Miller, and even old college classmates. The most emotional part was filming the current interactions between Caleb and Thunder. Even after so many years, the special connection between them was evident to anyone watching. "It's as if they talk without words," commented the cameraman during filming. "That's exactly what happens," confirmed Caleb. "We learn to communicate in a way that goes beyond verbal language." The documentary was launched at a special event at Red Willow Farm, with the presence of the entire community that had followed Caleb's journey from the beginning. "It's moving to see our story told this way," said Martha, visibly proud of her son. "Caleb has become an inspiration not only for our region, but for the entire country," added Samuel. The documentary was very well received, being used in veterinary courses and even in regular schools as an example of determination, observation, and connection with nature. Caleb was at the peak of his professional career, recognized nationally as an animal behavior specialist. When he received the news he always knew would come one day. Thunder, at 14 years old, had begun to show signs of natural decline related to advanced age. Dr. Sterling did a full evaluation and confirmed the bull was entering the final phase of his life. "How long does he have?" asked Caleb, trying to maintain his professional composure. "Hard to say for certain. It could be a few months, it could be up to a year. The important thing is, he's not suffering. It's a natural and peaceful decline." Caleb made a decision he considered appropriate for the situation. He drastically reduced his professional commitments to spend as much time as possible with Thunder in his final months. "He gave me so much throughout his life," he explained to Chloe. "The least I can do is be present when he needs it most." Thunder's final months were serene and dignified. Caleb visited the bull every day, sometimes bringing work to do in the pasture, other times just to keep him company. Arthur Harrison, now over 60, also spent extra time with the bull, who had become a symbol of the farm. "I never imagined an animal could mean so much," the farmer said to Caleb during one of these visits. "Thunder changed my way of seeing animals forever." "He changed all of us," replied Caleb. On a quiet autumn morning, Hank Miller found Thunder lying peacefully beneath his favorite tree. The bull had passed during the night, naturally and without suffering. Caleb was called immediately. When he arrived at the pasture and saw Thunder, he felt a mixture of profound sadness and immense gratitude. He stood there for a long time, in silence, saying goodbye to the friend who had transformed his life. "Thank you for everything," he murmured, giving one last gentle stroke to the bull who no longer responded. Thunder's funeral was a community event. Dozens of people came to pay their respects to the animal who had become a local legend. Caleb gave an emotional speech, remembering the journey they had shared and the lessons Thunder had taught not only him, but everyone around him. "Thunder taught me that sometimes what seems most dangerous or impossible can become our greatest source of learning and growth. He taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but acting in spite of fear when we know it's the right thing to do." Arthur Harrison decided to bury Thunder in the spot the bull had loved most, under the large tree in the center of the pasture. A small plaque was placed there reading, "Thunder, the bull who taught a boy to find his voice and transformed an entire community." In the months that followed, Caleb had to learn to cope with the absence of the companion who had been so important in his development. It was a pain unlike anything he had experienced before. But gradually, Caleb realized that the best way to honor Thunder's memory was to continue applying and teaching the lessons he had learned from him. Caleb's veterinary clinic continued to grow and become a national reference. He expanded services, created training programs for other veterinarians, and established partnerships with universities across the country. Caleb also created a special rural education program where young people from the region could learn about animal behavior and discover if they had an aptitude for the field, just as he had discovered years before. "I want to give other young people the same opportunity I had," Caleb explained about the program. "Maybe there's another observant boy or girl out there, just needing a chance to show their talent." 5 years after Thunder's passing, Caleb was established as one of the country's leading authorities on animal behavior. He had written 3 books, given hundreds of lectures, and trained dozens of specialist veterinarians. But what made him most proud was knowing he had changed how many people saw and treated their animals. The philosophy of patient observation and genuine empathy had spread far beyond his original clinic. One special afternoon, Caleb was walking through the pasture where Thunder used to be when he noticed a young girl of about 12 watching a cow that seemed to be in distress. "Hello," said Caleb, approaching the girl. "I'm Caleb, the veterinarian. Did you notice something with the cow?" "Hi, doctor, I'm Mia. I think she's in pain in her left hind leg. I watched her walking and she's not putting normal weight on that leg." Caleb was impressed with the precision of the girl's observation. "Very well observed, Mia. Are you interested in animals?" "Yes, I am, doctor. I like to watch them. My mum always says I pay too much attention to the animals." Caleb smiled, remembering when his own mother used to say similar things. "Mia, your mother is right. You pay attention to details. That's a very valuable talent." Caleb examined the cow and confirmed exactly what Mia had observed. There was a small stone lodged in the hoof of the left hind leg, causing the animal discomfort. "You were right, Mia. How did you notice that from a distance?" "I don't know, doctor. I just paid attention to the way she walked. It seemed different from other days." Caleb saw in Mia something very familiar, the same observant sensitivity, the same natural connection with animals that he had discovered in himself years ago. "Mia, would you like to learn more about animals? I have a special program for young people interested in the field." The girl's eyes lit up. "Really, doctor? I would love that." Caleb smiled, feeling that Thunder, in some way, had sent him a new mission. Just as Dr. Sterling and Arthur Harrison had believed in him when he was just a quiet boy with a special intuition, now it was his turn to believe in Mia and help her discover and develop her talent. "Then come see me at my clinic tomorrow. We'll talk with your parents about the possibilities." That night, Caleb visited Thunder's grave, as he regularly did. He told his old friend about Mia and how the cycle seemed to be repeating. "I think you sent her to me," said Caleb, looking at the plaque on the grave. "You know I've always liked helping young talents, and Mia has the same spark in her eyes that I must have had as a child." The wind rustled the tree leaves and Caleb felt a special peace, as if Thunder was somehow approving his thoughts. Mia became the first official student of Caleb's Young Talent program. Just as he had done years before, she spent afternoons at the clinic observing appointments, learning about animal behavior, and developing her natural observation skills. "It's impressive how she notices things that even experienced professionals miss," commented Dr. Sterling, who remained Caleb's partner at the clinic. "It's exactly how I was at her age," replied Caleb. "She just needed someone to believe in what she sees." Mia quickly stood out in the program, and Caleb saw in her the same potential others had seen in him many years before. It was a rewarding feeling to be for Mia what Dr. Sterling and Arthur Harrison had been for him. "Dr. Caleb," said Mia one day after a particularly difficult appointment, "how did you know you wanted to work with animals?" Caleb smiled and told Mia the full story of Thunder, from the day the bull was destined for sacrifice to the special connection they developed over the years. Mia listened with total attention, asking smart questions and showing she understood the depth of the journey Caleb had lived. "Do you think I could have a special connection with an animal like the one you had?" "Mia, you already have special connections with several animals. You just need to learn to recognize and develop that gift." Caleb was right. In the months that followed, Mia demonstrated a remarkable ability to connect with difficult animals, always using the same approach of patient observation and genuine empathy that Caleb had developed. 3 years later, Mia was preparing to take the same early university entrance exams that Caleb had taken at her age. And just like Caleb, she had the full support of the community that had witnessed her development. "It's as if history is repeating itself," commented Martha, who at 72 still closely followed her son's career and now also Mia's. "It's not a repetition," corrected Caleb. "It's a continuation. Each person has their own journey, but sometimes journeys connect in special ways." On the day Mia took the exams, Caleb accompanied her to the university, vividly remembering when he had been in the same situation years before. "Nervous?" asked Caleb. "A little, but also excited to show what I've learned," replied Mia, displaying the same mix of nervousness and confidence that Caleb had felt. Mia passed with even better scores than Caleb's, confirming that he had found yet another young person with exceptional talent for the field. During the celebration of Mia's acceptance, Caleb reflected on how his life had transformed since that distant day when a quiet boy decided to approach a bull destined for sacrifice. Now, at 32, Caleb was nationally recognized, had a thriving clinic, taught at universities, had written inspiring books, and was training the next generation of animal behavior veterinarians. But more important than all the professional successes was knowing he had found his true purpose in life, and that he was managing to pass that purpose on to others. "Thunder would be proud," said Arthur Harrison, now 70 years old, during Mia's celebration party. "I'm sure he is proud," replied Caleb, looking toward the pasture where his old friend used to be. That night Caleb visited Thunder's grave once more. It was becoming a tradition of his to come there whenever something important happened in his life. "Thank you, my old friend," said Caleb, touching the plaque on the grave, "for teaching me that courage isn't about not having fear, but about doing what's right despite the fear. For showing me that observing with patience can reveal truths that others miss. And most of all, for teaching me that saving one life can end up saving many other lives too." The wind once again rustled the leaves of the tree, and Caleb felt the peaceful presence of Thunder, as if the bull was still there, silently approving all that his life had become. Caleb left the makeshift cemetery with a heart full of gratitude and hope. He knew his journey was still far from over, and that there were many other animals to help, many other young people to guide, and many other lessons to learn and teach. As he walked back home, Caleb looked up at the starry sky and smiled. The quiet boy who once approached an uncontrollable bull had become a confident man who dedicated his life to building bridges between the world of animals and the world of humans. And it had all started with a simple act of courage and compassion, proving that sometimes the greatest transformations begin with the smallest gestures of love. End of story. And you? What did you think of Caleb and Thunder's incredible journey? Can you imagine the courage that boy had to approach a bull everyone considered dangerous? Leave in the comments which part of the story moved you the most and whether you believe Caleb made the right decisions. Your opinion is very important to us,